Hi, welcome to the Aaron Michaels Show. Email address, aaronmichaelshow@gmail.com. If you want to get a hold of the program, you can also follow along on Twitter at Wisconsin Aaron. And that is at Wisconsin Aaron and aaronmichaelshow@gmail.com. Okay, you know what? So the Packers get this win on Sunday over the Detroit Lions. And you hear the same thing. And I've been talking to people about this since week 2 of this season. Here's the old mantra: a win is a win. And I've been arguing since week 2 with Packer fans about this, telling you to project ahead. What does it mean for the playoffs? What does it mean for your Super Bowl chances? Because, and I know, and I'm going to get to a poll that I took that is still running for a couple of hours yet, in just a few minutes. I look at everything through the lens of, are the Packers a Super Bowl contender? Do they have a chance to win the Super Bowl? That is the goal of an NFL season. That should be the goal of the Green Bay Packers. It should also be the goal of every other team in the NFL. And it's not just the Packers I look at this way. I look at every sports team in the state of Wisconsin like that. And, it doesn't have anything to do with Wisconsin. Anywhere that I would go, I would look at it this way. The goal of a Major League Baseball season, if you're a Brewer fan, is to win the World Series. In the NBA, if you're a Bucks fan, the goal is to win an NBA championship. It doesn't matter if it's 2014 or 2019 where you're good. The goal is still the same, and you can't change the goal of a season just because it's something that's hard to do. And yes, I am fully aware that means that every other team in the league fails. I get that. I agree with that. Every team in the league fails every year except for one. And I look at everything through that vision. Are the Packers a Super Bowl contender? So when you're going with this a win is a win mantra, it's not clicking with me, because when I look at this team, I see a team that I don't know. I mean, you have to have some sort of area to rely on in the playoffs. The Packers do not have an offense to fall back on. They don't have a defense to fall back on. You don't get to play the Lions, the Bears, the Redskins, the Giants. You don't get to play those teams in the playoffs, ladies and gentlemen. You do not. You have to play San Francisco, Seattle, New Orleans. Again, talking about projecting ahead, for almost 3 quarters on Sunday, Aaron Rodgers played some really horrific-looking football. And you can barely, as we saw, you can barely do that and get away with it against the Lions. What about when you play New Orleans? What about when you play San Fran? Well, we already saw. What about when you play Seattle? You can't get away with that. You can't sleepwalk through 3 quarters of a football game. I mean, when you're playing David Blau and the Lions, I suppose you can. And almost still, they didn't get away with it. But you definitely can't do that when you're in the playoffs. You just can't. And there is a noticeable split right now in Packer fans. Because you have some fans who are really happy, really giddy, just right on top of the world with the team being 13-3. And then you have fans on the other side who I would put myself into this category that just, all season long. And people have been talking about it. The Packers get a win at Lambeau Field, and the crowd coming out is so quiet. And people just can't figure, why? Why? Why are so many people down on a 13-3 team? There's a split between the Packer fans, the ones who are happy and all excited, and the ones who are reserved and actually kind of down on the team. I can identify exactly for you what this split is. There are 2 streams of Packer fans. On one side, you have fans such as myself who measure everything by, can this team win a Super Bowl? And then on the other side, you've got the fans who are just happy to be exceeding expectations this year. The Packers had a 6-win season last year. They've added 7 wins to that. Nobody really thought they had a chance to make the playoffs. I don't know anyone who's picking them to win the division this year. But people thought maybe, at best, you were going to be a wild card team, but chances are you probably weren't going to make the playoffs. New coach, new system, so on and so forth. So they're the people who say, well, you got 13 wins. Why aren't you happy with that? See, to me, it's not about the wins and losses. Because, like I said, I'm with that stream of fans that say, I'm looking at everything through the lens of, are we going to win a Super Bowl with what we have out there right now? So it's not about the wins and losses to me. Okay, I don't care if they're 16-0, or if they're 15-1, 13-3, 10-6. I don't care if they're 8-8. All I care about is that one important question: is this team good enough to win a Super Bowl? And if the answer to that is yes, I don't care what the record is. They don't have to be 16-0 for me to be happy. They could be 8-8. They could be 7-9 and somehow make the playoffs. If they had a legit shot at winning a Super Bowl, I'd be excited with a 7-9 record. I don't care about the record. It's not about being 13-3. Speaking before of the Aaron Rodgers, obviously doing some big time struggling in that game. I thought it was funny after the game. You had Matt LaFleur, who I think is very scared to step on Aaron Rodgers' toes. It's the approach that he's taken since day one. You know what? Going back to the offseason, when different names were being floated about in terms of coming in to be the head coach of the Green Bay Packers, you had people on differing sides. You had somebody who's, the Packers essentially had a choice of what to go with, at head coach. You could get a disciplinarian, or maybe somebody like Jim Harbaugh, who's going to come in and step on Rodgers' toes and say, hey, look, I'm in charge. You do what I say, how I say it. Or you could get somebody who's going to be more on the other side of, okay, Rodgers, this is kind of your team here. We're going to let it ride. And that's clearly what LaFleur is. I mean, and you can like that, you can dislike that. I'm pointing out what he is. He's not going to be somebody who steps on Rodgers' toes. From day one, he came in with the objective not to coach Rodgers, not to change Rodgers. He came in with the objective to be friends with Rodgers. He came in to be buddies with Rodgers. He is there playing catch with Rodgers with Matt LaFleur and his kid, playing catch on Lambeau Field with Rodgers after practice during preseason games or after training camp. He came in with the objective to be friends with him. He's going to try to win him over by being friends. I don't think that was the way to go. But I mean, and you can, what about earlier in the season? We saw LaFleur confront Rodgers. Yeah, not really. We saw LaFleur say something to Rodgers, but you go back and you look at any conversation between Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers, it's a one-way conversation. It is Aaron Rodgers talking to LaFleur. It's not the other way around. But I thought it was interesting after the game because anyone with an objective pair of eyeballs watching that game on Sunday saw an Aaron Rodgers that looked really, really bad. What was the stat from ESPN? I think it was 17, they said, overthrows. It was 16 or 17, which was tied with Josh Freeman in the one game that he played a few years back with the Vikings. 16 or 17 overthrows in one game by Aaron Rodgers. That's a lot. And like I said, anyone with an objective pair of eyeballs could see that Rodgers did not play well. But after the game, interestingly enough, and maybe not so interesting because LaFleur is not going to step on Rodgers' toes. Excuse me. After the game, LaFleur, on Rodgers' struggles, essentially said, well, Aaron Rodgers can't do it all on his own. The guy's got to be in the right place. Guy's got to make catches. And once in a while, a throw is a tad off. A tad off. Rodgers was overshooting guys by yards. By yards. Wide open. Aaron Jones running down the sideline. Deep balls. Anything over 15 yards, basically. He was inaccurate on. And the coach comes out after that game, and he goes after the players who are around Rodgers. More than Rodgers himself. Which I think is telling about where LaFleur is at and the approach, essentially, that he takes with Rodgers. But at any rate, I did take a poll yesterday on Twitter, which just ended up closing not that long ago. So the poll was this: Aaron Rodgers is, and you finish a statement, as good as he's ever been. Still good, not great. He's just about average. Or Green Bay needs to draft a quarterback, like right now. Poll is closed. 68% of fans say Aaron Rodgers is still good, not great. 13% say he's about average. 9% say that Green Bay needs to draft a quarterback, like now. And 8%, I don't know this one, folks. I mean, I disagree with the fact that he's still good, not great. I think in many aspects he's been below average. I don't understand how 8% of, how many is that? Out of 791. 8%. How many people, we'll figure that out. How many people voted? I want to know what the total number of people who said he's as good as he's ever been. I see no difference between Aaron Rodgers now and Aaron Rodgers of 2010. I don't know what to tell you on that one. I mean, you honestly might need, to be checked into a home or have some new glasses or start watching. I don't know. I mean, anyone, you don't have to think he's scum of the earth, but to think that nothing. You can watch Aaron Rodgers on Sunday. So this is the same Aaron Rodgers I've been seeing for years. Sure, no different. Well, it is different. But those were the poll result numbers. So Mike McCarthy's still out there looking for a job. Interviewed, I believe I heard now that Mike McCarthy has had 2 interviews with the Carolina Panthers. And nothing come of it so far. I know there's been some talk about the Browns potentially pursuing him, how that may be a good idea. Just looking at through some headlines right now when it comes to Mike McCarthy. Giants brought in coaching search with Mike McCarthy. Giants to interview McCarthy this weekend. So he's getting a few looks. It'll be interesting to see what happens with him. Now, he says that he revamped the offense. If it's something that Mike is creating from scratch or modifying to what he already had, to be honest with you, I'm curious to see it. I'm just happy I don't have to see it in Green Bay. You know what's going to happen, though, if he does not get hired, which I still contend is a distinct possibility that he won't get hired. Because he never was and still is not a quarterback guru or an offensive genius. You name me one quarterback who he developed. Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers is the only guy that's been under the tutelage of McCarthy for an entire career. And Rodgers, you bring that up to him, he resents that. The fact that people say, well, McCarthy developed him. But you remember Rodgers wasn't that long ago came out and said, hey, hello, I'm pretty good here myself. And then you have the Tyler Dunn article where Rodgers says that Mike McCarthy had the lowest football IQ of any coach he'd ever been around. And said that he was a buffoon, which I completely, I 100% believe that Rodgers said that because it's the exact same thing that I've been saying for the last 12 years. But if anyone who does, name me a quarterback who he developed. Nobody. We went through like 9 years of trying to find a backup quarterback for Aaron Rodgers. And you not only drafted players, Brian Brohm, Matt Flynn, neither one of them ever turned into anything. Matt Flynn got paid a huge payday by the Seahawks and then never started a game. Never was to be seen again, except for when the Packers brought him back. And he was way less than mediocre at that. And you know why he got that payday? It's because he put up that huge game against the Lions. You know who was calling plays for him that game? Aaron Rodgers. It wasn't even McCarthy. But Brian Brohm. Okay, well let's go down. You got the guys that they drafted, and then what about the older guys that they brought in? He wasn't able to do anything. McCarthy wasn't with those rookies that you draft. And then what about when you bring in the retreads to see what McCarthy could do with them. Seneca Wallace, nothing. Vince Young, nothing. I mean, then you throw in some middle of the road, not draft picks, not just free agents that you bring in or whatever you do, like Scott Tolzien. Well, who the hell did he develop? No one. No one. So anyone who does their homework, a lot of these things just get repeated mindlessly by people who don't do their homework. Any NFL team who does their homework knows that Mike McCarthy never was, still is not, a quarterback guru or an offensive genius. Yeah, I heard Mike Vick say that the Browns should get Mike McCarthy because it would be good for Baker Mayfield. Again, after all the quarterbacks that cycled through Green Bay behind Rodgers, people still think that McCarthy is this quarterback whisperer. Yeah, I don't get it. People repeat that line. It takes on a life of its own, and people really just don't think for themselves. But all right, McCarthy's getting some tread out there. So what I was going to say is, I think there's a distinct possibility that if enough teams around the NFL have done their homework or do their homework, do their due diligence, they're not going to hire McCarthy. They're just not. They're going to realize that everything that McCarthy accomplished was off the back of Aaron Rodgers for his and Brett Favre in his time there. They're not going to hire. And this year, more than anything else, has been even more damaging to Mike McCarthy for one reason alone. Aaron Jones. This 1,000-yard season by Aaron Jones brought to you by the firing of Mike McCarthy. That's not a good look for Mike. I think there's a distinct possibility that he does not get hired. Now, don't worry. The biased Wisconsin sports media will be right there. They'll make sure they have everything taken care of. I can already tell you what their spin is going to be because they were all in. Remember this. This Wisconsin sports media for years, all in on McCarthy. Hey, you know what? All you idiots out there who want McCarthy fired, if we fire him, the Browns and everyone else will be lining up the next day to sign him. Oh, really? Nobody signed him last offseason. The Browns, the people who know him best, didn't even give him an interview. Did he interview with the Jets? That was it. He had one interview with the Jets. And then he said, I'm taking the year off. And then all the people in Wisconsin media, because they were already biased towards them, so, I see he's taking the year off. So I'll tell you what it's going to be this time around if he does not get hired. It's going to be, he didn't want to coach anymore. He just decided he didn't want to coach anymore. But don't forget, he spent the entire offseason revamping his offense. Sounds like a guy who wants to coach to me. So don't let anyone come along and tell you that he didn't want to coach anymore. You know what? One thing that gets lost in this entire Aaron Rodgers, we were talking earlier about you would take the poll question about what do you think of Rodgers at this point in his career, this and that. The one thing that's being forgotten in the more poor play of Aaron Rodgers is the contract that he has and all the money that he is sucking up. I mean, his play on Sunday was damaging to the team. Through the first three quarters till he figured something out, his play was damaging. You're in a situation where you're still in contention for a number one seed. If you win, you're guaranteed a first round bye if you win. But if you lose, you can fall all the way back to the 3 seed, which is what would have happened since the Saints won. But through 3 quarters in a big game, in a big situation like that, Rodgers was hurting you with his play. But the hurt that he gave them on the field, that's not even the biggest hurt that he brings. You got to remember the financial side. Somebody who's actually hurting your team in a huge game like that against the lowly Lions with the worst pass defense in the NFL, that same guy is making boatloads of money with that massive contract that he signed. And then you have people come out, well, and LaFleur even too after the game, like I already told you what he said. But you have other people come, yeah, but he doesn't have talent around him. You got Aaron Jones at running back, but after that, who are his receivers? I mean, yeah, Adams, and then after that, what? Allison, Lazard, Kumaro. Oh, he's got no talent there. Well, I got news for you. When you pay a quarterback as much money as you paid Aaron Rodgers, you can't give me excuses for why he's not doing well. Because you know what a contract like that is? When you give a contract to a quarterback that's that big, especially with the way that the NFL is structured, the way salary caps are structured, the way teams are structured, every team's got to skimp in some area. You have to. You have to find a way to get by being a little bit more weak in one area. No team, if you're looking at Madden ratings, no team is rated 99 in every category. You got to skimp by on some areas. So when you're paying a quarterback that huge money, you're not only paying him to be an elite quarterback, but you're paying him to say, okay, we're going to have to skimp on some receivers because we simply don't have money to pay them, nor should we have to pay receivers because you're getting paid to be an elite quarterback and to raise the play of the receivers around you. He's not raising the play of the receivers around him. And he himself, in a vacuum, is not playing as a good quarterback. The big hurt isn't the overshooting of 17 passes in one game, though that does hurt. The big hurt, ladies and gentlemen, that is the paycheck that he is getting. That is killing. That's going to kill him. The Packers. It's going to kill them. It's bad. Running through a few more things. I know. I get it. Totally get it. And 100% agree. There is not much talent on this offense. Adams puts up numbers. Adams isn't that great. But Adams puts up numbers because he gets the ball thrown his way so often. That's why he puts up good numbers. It doesn't have anything to do with him being great. Jordy Nelson was better than Davante Adams. I think easily, actually. But I get it. They are very void of talent behind that. People get excited about Kumaro because he's out of Wisconsin, out of Whitewater. Well, I think you're seeing, no matter how much Rodgers likes him, no matter how much you like him because he's from Wisconsin, no matter how much, he's still from UW-Whitewater, and we're seeing why. He's just not that good. You can get excited for him, that's fine. I get it. But he's not that good. And Lazard had a breakout game, or breakout half, a breakout quarter, in the fourth quarter against the Lions the first time around. But he's nothing. He's nothing special. Jimmy Graham is dropping passes, can't move after he catches it. Not really around in the red zone. He's not that good. Allison drops fumbles constantly. MVS, you don't even know if he's out on the field or not out on the field. He hadn't been. You know that while the Bucks were, what was the Bucks win streak? What did it end up being? 17 games? Allison had one catch during the entire Bucks win streak. Talk about bad. I hate to say it, because Rodgers is getting all that money, not just to be a good quarterback, but also to raise the play of those receivers around him. But the Packers, they almost have to go out and spend money on free agents at that position or invest draft capital in there. And you hate to do that when your quarterback's already making that much money, not just to play quarterback, but also to elevate the play of everyone else around him. Now, the saving grace for the Packer offense this year obviously has been Aaron Jones. So he went over 1,000 yards on Sunday in that game. And like I said before, that 1,000-yard season by Aaron Jones is brought to you by the firing of Mike McCarthy, because for whatever godforsaken reason, McCarthy would not use the guy. He just wouldn't use him. All right, so I want to before I wrap things up here, I do want to say this because you know what, this 13-3 Packer team is very hard to figure out. You look at where they rank statistically in most areas, and they reek of being average. When you look at them statistically, they're average in every sense of the word. And I say, so how are they 13-3? What the heck? I mean, they don't blow anyone away. They don't excel. And the one thing I've been saying all season about this team is that, you know, I think they're a very average team. And I think I'll prove that to you, that you can be an average team and be 13-3. Now, a lot of people say, wow, you're 13-3. You're doing a lot of stuff right. Well, you are. But I want to show you something, point something out to you, that it could explain further why this Packer team is 13-3 and still average. But every statistical category that they have points to them being average. Now, they are a little bit higher in some categories, like scoring defense, but then there are some categories on their defense where they're a bit lower than average. So it kind of all balances each other out. This team is average. They don't do anything great. Like I let off the program saying, they don't have any one area where they can rely on. However, on the flip side, they don't have any crippling weaknesses either. And it has all the makings of an average team. And the stats bear that out. Now, you know what? Before an NFL season starts, we all do the same thing, right? It's preseason or it's July, and you go and you look at the schedule and you predict, okay, this is how many wins the Packers are going to have based off of their schedule. Now, when you're doing that, you're looking at a schedule that you don't really know what you have there, okay? You don't know what the Bears are going to be like. I mean, you think you know, and that's how you base your picks, because you think you know what every team is going to be. But you don't actually know what every team is or what every team was until the season is done. So I always think it's really interesting. You can go and you can make your predictions before the season starts how the Packers are going to do. But you don't know until after the fact what you really had on your schedule. Okay, you didn't know that the Bears were going to be this bad. Most people were picking the Bears to win the division. You didn't know that the Cowboys were going to be this bad. I mean, most people were picking the Cowboys to be much better. People thought the Vikings were going to be better than what they were. You know what I'm saying? So when you go back and look, so I contend to you that the Packers are an average team, right? So let's go back and look at the schedule. And knowing what we know now through an entire NFL season about every team that was on the Green Bay schedule, knowing what we know now, I just want to ask you this. When I go through this schedule, I'm just going to say, could an average team beat this team? And if the answer is yes, then it's a team the Packers could have beaten. Well, let's look at it. Week 1 against the Bears. Knowing what we know now, could an average team beat the Bears this season? Yes. Week 2 against the Vikings. Could an average team beat this Viking team? Yeah. I'd say so. Could an average team beat the Broncos in Week 3? Yes. Packers lost to the Eagles. Could an average team beat the Cowboys? Yes. Could an average team beat the Lions? Yes. Could an average team beat the Raiders? Yes. Could an average team beat the Chiefs without Patrick Mahomes? Yes. Packers lose to the Chargers. Could an average team beat the Panthers? Yes. Packers go and get pummeled by San Francisco, the only really good team on their schedule, 37-8. And then we come back. Could an average team beat the Giants? Yes. Could an average team beat the Redskins? Yes. Could an average team beat the Bears a second time? Yes. Could an average team beat the Vikings a second time? Yes, though it was a more impressive win on Monday night to win the division. But still, I mean, that wasn't all the Packers. The Vikings aren't that great. Again, I'm not, and that's not to put down the Packers. And the Vikings are just less average than the Packers are. And then, could the Packers beat the Lions again? Could an average team beat the Lions again? Yes. Now my question is, because the next game on the Packers' schedule is NFL divisional round playoffs, To be determined at the Packers. Now I ask you, could an average team beat New Orleans? Could an average team beat San Francisco? Could an average team beat the 49ers? Could an average team beat the Seattle Seahawks? I don't know. And that's the thing. Well, how did a team like the Packers end up 13-3? They ended up beating a lot of bad teams that were on their schedule. They really did. And one other thing that I want to leave you with before I go, because I thought this was excellent insight. I love Chris Sims. I think he's, if not the best, one of the best NFL analysts out there. He made a great point. Because nobody can fully figure out this 13-3 Packer team, but Sims gave some great insight. To paraphrase, he basically said, the Packers play everyone evenly. The biggest difference is that the Packers score touchdowns while their opponents score field goals. So he said, if you go field goal, touchdown, field goal, touchdown, field goal, touchdown, you play them evenly. Only difference is what you scored. You got a 21-9 lead. Good insight, because that's true. And that definitely helps. They do play teams evenly. They also need to stop coming out flat against opponents, especially in big games. Because twice this year, I counted 4 times total where the Packers came out flat. Twice in really big games. Once at San Francisco, totally flat, uninspired. Secondly, with a potential number 1 seed on the line, a first-round bye definitely on the line, and the fact that you could possibly fall to a 3 seed, they came out flat on Sunday against the Lions. That's something LaFleur's got to figure out, because that goes right back to him. That goes right back on coaching. It absolutely does. That's going to do it for today's program. Again, if you want to send fan mail, that can be done. AaronMichaelShow@gmail.com. Also follow along at Wisconsin Aaron on Twitter. We'll talk to you next time. Have a great day.